Welcome to Unleashed. I'm your host, Will Bachman. Right before Christmas, on December 21st, my family and I went to an open working rehearsal of the New York Pops, along with the Essential Voices USA chorus, on Friday afternoon at Carnegie Hall. The point of this podcast is not about how to get tickets to this event, but just a quick aside. To get tickets to this event, you need to be an associate member, and normally an associate membership costs $300 and would let you get 10 free tickets to any of the open rehearsals throughout the year. So if you do nothing else with your associate membership at Carnegie Hall, if you want to go to this holiday rehearsal next year, it would cost you basically $30 per ticket, which is a lot less than tickets to the actual show. I bought the associate membership at one of these school PTA parent auctions for a little bit less than that, so it was quite a good deal. Anyway, let me describe the rehearsal. So all the musicians of the New York Pops are up on stage in their normal places, except they're dressed in regular street clothes, as if the conductor had rounded up every adult at the nearest Barnes & Noble and marched them over to Carnegie Hall. There was one percussion player who was partially dressed in his tuxedo with no bow tie or jacket, but maybe he didn't want to have to change before the real show later that evening. It was general admission seating for the rehearsal, and my family and I, my wife and myself and our 3 kids, we sat just about 8 rows from the stage in the orchestra section. There was a decent crowd, but perhaps only about 70% of the seats were filled, so you could sit kind of in any part of the of Carnegie Hall that you wanted to. The conductor, Stephen Reinecke, in most cases led the orchestra and chorus straight through each song, but sometimes he would stop in the middle and give some instructions, like, brass, you can dig in a bit more, or little quiet over there, strings, or I can't hear the chorus, or once he said, sorry, I messed up and I didn't give you the cue, and let's start over, and then he'd scribble a note to himself. At one point, Reinecke asked a stagehand to bring him a towel to wipe his face. Another time he asked for a couple bottles of water because he was getting thirsty. In between some of the songs, he'd say, okay, now I turn to the audience and give a little talk here, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's say my talk is done. At one point, Reinecke just left the stage while they were playing, walked to the back of the room, and it wasn't clear if he wanted to hear how the orchestra sounded from the back or just confer with the sound team, but they just kept on playing. The guest artist, Ashley Brown, who played Mary Poppins on Broadway, she brought her young daughter up on stage for one song. Her daughter must have been about 3 years old, and Ashley held her in her arms. For the actual performance, she said her daughter would be asleep, but she wanted to hear Mommy sing at Carnegie Hall. If any musician messed up, it was no big deal. No one cringed. They just kind of kept playing. It felt like we'd been invited to watch a bunch of friends making music together. It was far more interesting and more enjoyable than watching the actual formal performance. Everyone was looser. They were having fun, willing to try out something that might not work. It felt authentic and human. And it made me think, as consultants, how can we make our interactions with clients more like that rehearsal and less like the formal evening black tie performance? How can we do more to bring clients into the process, into the whiteboard sessions where it isn't a disaster if we sound a note that's out of tune, and where we haven't baked every recommendation into PowerPoint? What about you? Do you invite your clients to an open rehearsal? Thanks for listening. If you found this episode thought-provoking, I hope you'll share it with a friend or maybe review it on iTunes. That helps other people discover the show. And if you haven't already, consider visiting umbrex.com/unleashed, where you can sign up to receive the weekly Unleashed email that includes a transcript of each episode, book recommendations, and consulting tips. Thanks for listening.